File it now. Doug Christie's voice cracked like thunder inside his lawyer's office. In his trembling hands, the DNA report that shattered his life. Not just betrayal, not just lies, but the death of his soul. The funeral wasn't for a person. It was for trust itself. Imagine the scene: paparazzi flashes, tears that felt rehearsed, whispers that cut deeper than knives. In the middle of it all stood Doug Christie, a man once defined by loyalty, now hollowed out by humiliation. He had loved Jackie Christie like a soldier loves his country. He had defended her against every rumor, every scandal, every critic. And yet, on that day, his silence spoke louder than any eulogy. The truth was buried, but Doug was about to exhume it, because behind the black dresses and the expensive suits, there was a secret too heavy to stay hidden. A DNA test that proved the unthinkable. Montell Jordan, not Doug, was the real father of Jackie's daughter. It wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy, a crime of the heart carried out in shadows. And Doug, standing among flowers and lies, vowed this betrayal would not be buried with polite smiles. It would be dragged into the light. Doug Christie's story wasn't supposed to end in betrayal. He was the warrior on the basketball court, the devoted husband off it. While other players chased fame and temptation, Doug stayed loyal. He lived for Jackie. He built his world around family, but cracks had been forming long before the DNA detonated. Whispers, late-night calls, strange payments hidden under business expenses. For years, Doug silenced his doubts. He wanted to believe Jackie's words. He wanted to protect Chantal, the daughter he swore was his blood. Then came the moment he could never forget. A lawyer handed him the envelope. Doug opened it with shaking hands. The paper screamed in cold ink, probability of paternity, 0%. His world collapsed in seconds. The man who had guarded his marriage like a fortress discovered he'd been guarding a lie. And the whispers grew darker: allegations of hush money, bank transfers from Montell to Jackie, and even a leaked audio where the two allegedly laughed about the secret they buried. For Doug, this wasn't just betrayal. It was execution by deception. A love story turned into a crime scene. And with one trembling decision, he chose war. For Doug, fatherhood was never a performance. He carried Chantal on his shoulders at games, wiped her tears during storms, whispered bedtime promises. Daddy's here, always. He wasn't just present, he was devoted. But devotion can be a trap. Jackie's love wasn't the fortress Doug thought it was. To the world, they were the model couple. Behind closed doors, it was different. Her loyalty lived in shadows, where Montell Jordan's voice allegedly replaced Doug's in Chantal's bloodline. And Chantal, she became the ultimate victim. When the DNA truth surfaced, her world cracked like glass. Her Instagram post shook millions. Who am I? My life is built on lies. My father is not who I thought. Doug read those words and wept. Not because he lost Jackie, but because his daughter, his pride, his purpose now doubted his love. He begged silently, "Don't let DNA erase us. Don't let betrayal define us." Yet Jackie stayed silent. Montell denied, and Chantal floated in identity limbo, torn between the man who raised her and the man whose blood she carried. The family that once stood as a symbol of strength was now scattered in ashes. Doug's last public words before the trial still echo. Standing on courthouse steps, cameras blinding him, he whispered, "This isn't betrayal. This is the murder of my soul." The leaked audio played in his mind like a funeral hymn. Jackie's voice cold. "He'll never know. Chantal is ours." Montell's laugh followed, sharp and cruel. Doug trembled as he lifted the DNA report in front of reporters. "This paper is my death certificate," he said. "But I'm not gone yet. Justice will speak." Inside court, when Chantal's trembling voice played in a recording, "Doug loved me more than anyone. I don't care about DNA. He was my father in every way that mattered." The room froze. Doug collapsed in sobs, clutching his chest. It was the last goodbye to the illusion of family. The final funeral for trust. Doug Christie didn't just file a lawsuit. He carved a scar into history. The $100 million claim was never about money. It was about dignity, fatherhood, identity. Jackie's reputation now lives in infamy, her silence louder than screams. Montell's empire crumbles, boycotts erasing his once beloved name, and Chantal, broken but brave, becomes the tragic voice of a generation asking, does blood define family, or does love? For Doug, the verdict gave justice, but not healing. His heart remained shattered. Yet, his fight became a symbol proof that truth, no matter how late, will always rise. Fans flood timelines with hashtags. Hashtag justice for Doug. Hashtag DNA deception. Hashtag broken but brave. This wasn't just scandal. It was Shakespeare in real life, a story of loyalty, betrayal, and survival etched into public memory. And as the world moves on, Doug's whisper lingers. They can steal my past, but not my fight, because in the end, betrayal may murder trust, but love, real love, leaves a legacy even DNA cannot erase. The gavel had already fallen. The verdict was spoken. Jackie and Montell's names had been dragged through fire, their reputation stripped, their empire burned to dust. But when Doug Christie stepped out of the courtroom for the final time, it wasn't triumph written on his face, it was exhaustion. The cameras swarmed him like vultures circling a broken lion. Reporters shouted his name. Microphones lunged forward. Flashes burned his swollen eyes. He raised a trembling hand to silence the noise. And then, with a voice cracked by grief, he whispered, "This isn't victory. This is survival." The crowd went still. That sentence became a prophecy, a reminder that in stories like these, nobody truly wins. Because what is justice when the years you lost can never return? What is vindication when the daughter you love questions if you are really her father? What is triumph when the only prize left is the ashes of what once was a family? Doug walked away slowly, each step heavier than the last. Behind him, the courthouse stood tall, but to him, it looked like a tomb, a place where his soul had been tried, dissected, and left bleeding for the world to consume. Jackie vanished from public view. No interviews, no red carpets, no public apologies. For someone who once thrived in the spotlight, her silence was deafening. Whispers followed her like shadows, fans calling her the Black Widow, critics branding her a betrayer in designer heels. She became a ghost, hiding from the storm she helped create. Montell Jordan faced the opposite. His denial turned to defiance, but defiance turned to collapse. Concerts were canceled. Sponsors fled. The man once known for songs of love and celebration now found his name trending alongside words like fraud, betrayal, and traitor. His smile and old photos became a meme, a cruel reminder of the laugh that allegedly mocked Doug's pain. But the true wound lay in Chantal. For her, identity itself was shattered. Every time she looked in the mirror, she saw not just her reflection, but 1,000 questions. Who am I? Who raised me? Who betrayed me? Her posts online painted a portrait of someone torn between two worlds, between the father who loved her unconditionally and the man who gave her his blood. One night, she went live on Instagram. Her voice shook as tears streamed down her face. "I love my mom. I respect Montell. But the man who showed up, who tucked me in, who never let me feel alone, that was Doug. And if DNA says otherwise, then maybe DNA in what makes a father." Millions watched, millions cried, and in that moment, Doug, sitting alone in his darkened living room, broke down again. He whispered to the TV, "That's all I needed. Baby girl, that's all I needed." Imagine, for a moment, the last private conversation between Doug and Jackie. Not the one filled with rage, not the one inside the courtroom, but the one behind closed doors when the cameras were gone. Doug's voice was low, hoarse from sleepless nights. "Why, Jackie? You could have told me. You could have trusted me. I would have forgiven anything except the lie." Jackie's mascara-stained face looked away. Her words barely left her lips. "I was scared. Scared you'd leave. Scared I'd lose everything." Montell promised it would never come out. Doug slammed his fist against the table, not in violence, but in agony. "You didn't lose me, Jackie. You murdered me, piece by piece, year by year, and you made me raise a child in a lie, thinking I was her blood, when I was her shield. You didn't just steal my truth, you stole my soul." The silence after that exchange was colder than any verdict. Because some betrayals don't echo, they suffocate. Weeks after the verdict, Doug was spotted outside his home. His body thinner, his face pale. Neighbors whispered he hadn't been eating. Friends revealed he barely slept. His life revolved around grief, court updates, and the endless flood of social media where strangers argued over his pain. One night, paparazzi cameras caught him sitting on his porch, head in hands, whispering into the night. Reporters later amplified the audio. "I don't want the money. I don't want revenge. I just want my daughter to know no matter what the papers say, I was her father every single day of her life." The clip went viral instantly. Fans reshared it with captions like, "This is real fatherhood. This is love beyond blood." But the image of Doug, a broken warrior, whispering his truth into the darkness, became the symbol of the entire tragedy. In the weeks that followed, Chantal disappeared from social media. For the first time, silence replaced scandal, until one morning, a letter appeared on her page, handwritten, scanned, and posted for millions to see. "I don't know who I am, but I know who raised me, and no matter what DNA says, Doug Christie is my father. He gave me love when no one else did. He gave me safety when lies surrounded me. He gave me a family when the truth was stolen. And to him, I will always be his daughter." The internet exploded. Hashtags flooded timelines. Hashtag SHANTEL speaks. Hashtag Doug forever dad. Hashtag DNA can't define love. Celebrities reposted it. Fans wept. The story that began with betrayal now carried a new chapter, one of loyalty that even DNA couldn't erase. For Doug, that letter wasn't just words. It was oxygen. Proof that his years of love weren't erased by a test. Proof that family isn't written in blood, it's written in devotion. As time passed, the scandal became more than headlines. It became a cautionary tale. Documentaries dissected it. Podcasts debated it. Fans wrote essays, comparing it to Shakespearean tragedies and Greek myths. Doug Christie became more than an athlete, more than a betrayed husband. He became a symbol, a man who fought back when the truth was buried, a man who proved that even shattered souls can stand in court and demand justice. Jackie's name faded into disgrace. Montell's laughter haunted his career. But Doug, though broken, stood tall in memory, not as a victor, but as a survivor. Because sometimes, survival is the greatest victory of all. So what do we learn from Doug Christie's tragedy? That betrayal doesn't just break hearts, it murders them. That DNA may define biology, but it can never define love. That secrets, no matter how deeply buried, always claw their way into the light. Doug lost years. He lost trust. He lost the woman he thought was his partner. But he never lost the love he gave. And that, perhaps, is the greatest truth of all. Because love given is never wasted, even in betrayal, even in lies, even in the ashes of a family destroyed, love remains. As the credits of this story fade, picture Doug Christie sitting alone in his home, the lawsuit papers stacked beside him, the world still buzzing about his tragedy. He looks at a photo of Chantal as a child, smiling on his shoulders. He whispers, "You'll always be mine," and maybe that's the legacy. Not the courtroom battles, not the headlines, not the betrayal, but a father's unbreakable love for the daughter who, in the end, chose him back. Because DNA can reveal blood, but only love reveals the truth. And the truth, no matter how painful, will always outlive the lie.